Hey guys, I'm here with Teddy Collins. He is the owner of Spartan Defense.
Yeah, Spartan Defense Armory and Training out of Colorado Springs.
And
I'm also the co-host on the Second Syndicate along with Alicia Garcia, the Boomstick Babe. We're 2A podcasts on YouTube on the Spartan Defense channel.
On YouTube. Okay,
yes,
so I'll put this on YouTube. I'll get you guys tagged in there.
I appreciate it.
So what is your take on this SB3? Do you think it's going to pass out of this committee?
Unfortunately, I do. I'm a pessimist at heart. Honestly, I like to think the worst of everybody, and with these people, I mean, I can never think worse of them. I mean, they always go below what I think is the possible lowest. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's one part of the bill that you would take out completely, let's say, aside from getting rid of the bill altogether, what would that be?
Well, the training requirement aspect of it is absurd. So again, I don't believe in training requirements in general for a constitutional right. I think everybody should be trained, but I don't believe it should be a requirement.
Yeah.
But if I were going to say anything, the reason that they put this in CPW's books is so that they could, because it's a private enterprise, right? It would allow them to remove the fiscal note, which would have killed this bill in appropriations, and puts the debt onto Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Gotcha.
Which unfortunately is going to cause them to be underfunded and potentially not issue as many licenses as well.
So my understanding is that they're going to probably put this amendment for the CPW thing after this hearing, and then that could potentially send it back to the Senate.
So at this point, from my understanding, it's already going back to the Senate for reconciliation, but there will be no additional time for public testimony.
Oh, gotcha.
So even if it goes back to the Senate, it won't go to a committee. It'll just go straight to the Senate floor where it will be voted upon for the changes that they put into it, which of course the Senate generally doesn't like the House changing its bills.
Yeah.
But in this situation, they seem pretty unified. They seem like they're on a unified front, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Yeah. That sucks. You said the training requirements. So my understanding of the bill is that you literally have to get the permission card to get the safety training.
Yeah, so it's a really convoluted training method, and they don't even have the requirements for the course. They just state that you have to have a 90 percentile in order to pass the course, which is higher than our grades, the grades here in Colorado required in schools.
Yeah,
I don't think most of these people could probably pass that test.
So did you know what the post requirements are?
As far as post certification is concerned, I know what they are for other states. I'm not too familiar with Colorado's post certification.
So as far as I understand, it's written as 70%.
Yes.
And firearms accuracy is 100. However, it's a man-sized target,
and you have to get it in the 8 ring. It's a B27 most likely, right?
So I think it's an actual. I have to look it up again, but it's actually a specified target. But anyway, it's basically a man-sized target at 3, 7, and 10 yards.
You just have to get it in the vitals somewhere.
You have to get it. You just have to hit the target.
I love that.
Yeah, so there you go.
So we're going to be held to a higher standard than law enforcement in this situation.
Correct.
That's great. That's great. Also, it's a 3-day course requirement. I don't know if you I don't know if you saw this, but they require a basic class that you had to have taken in the last 2 years of a minimum of 4 hours, which Colorado Parks and Wildlife Hunters Ed can take place of.
Right.
Or a basic pistol from the NRA, for example, could take place from.
Gotcha.
Then you have to take a 12-hour additional enhanced course for semi-automatic training that has to take place over a minimum of 2 days. So you're talking about 3 days of training for your rights.
So that's my understanding too, right?
Yes.
Regardless of whether you have, let's say the last year they passed this concealed weapons ban, or this concealed weapons bill. They passed that.
Yes.
That's an 8-hour course from a verified instructor.
Correct.
That doesn't even count towards this 12 and 4 hours.
It could count towards the 4. It could count towards the 4, but it doesn't count towards the 12. If they were serious about wanting public safety, and again, I don't agree that training requirements should be there.
Right.
But if they were serious about public safety, they would have incentivized CCW or CHP by making that the course requirement alone. They already have a government bureaucracy set up to handle that versus creating a brand new one in a brand new licensing process. So it obviously says they're not serious about it and they're trying to play games with the accounting.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, what else can we talk about? There's a lot in the bill, but I think it's a completely unconstitutional bill, period, whatsoever. 100%. But I think that instead of like all these amendments or whatever, instead of saying, hey, I like to use hunting, for example, because that's why they're using the CPW clause right here, right?
Yeah, that's part of it, yes.
Right?
And the appropriation.
Instead of using hunting or sport shooting for any of your arguments, I think that we should all unifiedly say, no, I'm an American, and I want to exercise my right without infringement.
Correct. They like to compare this to hunting. They like to use hunting as an example, but the founding fathers weren't concerned about hunting. They were concerned about a tyrannical government.
Correct. Yeah.
They were concerned about oppression.
Yeah.
A government should not a government should be afraid of its people. Its people should not be afraid of their governments.
Yep.
That's the principle of the founding fathers, and they forget that in there. That the purpose of the Second Amendment is to protect us from those people sitting up there in that committee.
Yep. Okay, I think that's all questions I have. So again, plug your name, plug your businesses again.
Teddy Collins, Spartan Defense Armory and Training out of Colorado Springs, co-host the Second Syndicate podcast on YouTube, Spartan Defense Armory channel.
All right, guys, look, I'm here with Sheriff Rao from Mesa County, and I'm just going to let him kind of talk on how he understands this bill and how it's going to affect us, just like I've been doing with all the other interviews today. So, Sheriff, this is the way I understand it. Get a permit to take a safety class, to purchase a specified semi-automatic. There's going to be 2 background checks in that whole process, and it's unclear whether you have to do the 12-hour and the 4-hour, or if you have the 4-hour and the hunter safety course, that you don't have to do the 12-hour.
So my understanding of it at this point is if you have a hunter safety card, you have to do 4 hours.
You have to do
don't
4 hours. Okay.
Have a hunter safety card, you have to do 12 hours.
Okay.
Spanned over 2 days.
Okay, so that's a couple of different things I've been hearing, right, from different individuals. That shows you how convoluted this thing is. It's pretty ridiculous. And then also, from my understanding, I am a verified instructor in El Paso County for the state of Colorado. And that 8-hour course that somebody would take would not or would count towards the potentially 16 hours that you would have to take for specified semi-automatic.
I do not. I know. All I know is the 12-hour course.
Yeah.
For the specified semi-automatics.
Gotcha.
It covers you, or the 4 hours if you're already gone through.
Gotcha.
Which is.
But the concealed carry permit course, yes. I mean, it's very specific. It has specific things you have to teach within that 8 hours. And do it in addition, obviously 50 rounds and there's 2 tests, right? So one would think that would be more than enough to meet this requirement.
I don't think that's weighed the combination of those 2 bills to see which one you're not double dipping.
Yeah.
For lack of better.
Yeah. So, will this create, in your opinion, in your experience, your extensive experience as a police officer in the state of Colorado, will this create a bigger black market than there already is?
Yes, I think anytime you take away a legal means for somebody to get a firearm, there's always a black market that comes out. Yeah. The bigger issue is that it's not going to reduce any gun violence. It's not going to, these firearms are still going to be in the hands of criminals.
Right.
It's the law-abiding citizens that are following the letter of the law that will now have to go through these hoops or decide that they've got to affix their magazine for AR-15.
Right.
I don't even understand.
Yeah, like that'd be a safety issue.
Yes.
100%.
So, truly, I believe it's a law that affects the law-abiding citizens and the way criminals get their firearms. This doesn't affect them. They can still steal a firearm just as easy. They can go to another state and get a firearm. They can borrow a buddy's firearm. They're not going down and going through this process. They're not going through the process right now to get a firearm.
Pop quiz. How many gun stores are there in the country of Mexico?
I have no idea.
One in all of Mexico. Okay, so let's say Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, let's say she said, you know what, Colorado SB3, that's a great bill. Let's go ahead and impose this here. Do you think the criminal cartel is going to go through the rigmarole to get these specified semi-automatics?
No.
Obviously, that's an obvious no, right? But I'm trying to paint here. There's some similarities, right? Criminals are criminals. Some criminals are high-level criminals. Some criminals are low-level criminals. But at the end of the day, they're going to do criminal things, right? A dog's going to be a dog. A criminal's going to be a criminal. So that's my whole point behind it.
Yes, and I can tell you right now, handling the volume of people that will need to go through a 12-hour course.
Yeah.
I struggle with it over the state government, even though I get along great with the CPW. For them to put that number of people to firearms with quality instructors, you're going to have a year or 2 year waiting list for someone to exercise their Second Amendment. We don't do that with people's First Amendment. Say, oh, you can go protest now that you've gone through all these classes for 2 years. Now you can go out and protest.
Yeah.
So it's only amendment that we put people through all these things.
Yeah, imagine, if you will, you came to my house, you want to search it, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. Like, well, where's your permit that says that I can't search your house, right? So, all right, thank you so much, Sheriff. Thank you. All right, Dave with AAA Coach here. I'm here with Ava Flanell. She is a firearms instructor. She's a staunch Second Amendment advocate. I'm going to just let her introduce herself for those of you who don't know her. Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. So I am now, as of just a few days ago, the VP of Legislative Engagement for Colorado State Shooting Association. I also have a podcast called the Ava Flanel Show. And then, as you said, I've been an instructor now for, I guess since 2013. So it's been a while. But yeah, I have my hands in a little bit of everything at this point.
So let's just start off with that. Then how did you become an instructor? Exactly.
I became an instructor because my mom was a firearms instructor, and sadly, she passed away.
Understood.
And I moved back from New York City. At the time I was living in New York City, I lived there for 8 years, moved back to help with the family business, and I realized that there weren't a lot of female instructors helping other females. So that's why.
Right on. So SB3, this is the way I understand it. I want to see your take on it. You have to get a permit to even take the safety course.
Yes.
You take the safety course, either the 16 or the 4 or both. That's kind of wishy-washy right now, because I've heard.
Did you say the 16?
The 12 hour and 4 hour.
Yeah.
Now, it's unclear whether you have to take both of those or just one of those, depending on if you have a hunter safety course.
So if you have a hunter safety license, you would take a 4-hour safety class. If you don't have your hunter safety license, you would take a 12-hour class.
Okay. See, I've heard the opposite, right? So that just shows you how confusing this bill actually is. So let's go into last year's bill for the concealed weapons class, the 8-hour class. I assume you're a verified instructor in El Paso County? I am also a verified instructor. Number 3, anyway.
I don't know. I think I was like number 28.
But so you have to go and, you have to take the safety, the concealed handgun permit class or course from a verified instructor. It has 8 hours, 50 rounds minimum. There's a written test, and then there's a range test, okay? Then you can go apply for your concealed carry permit, which is another $150, let's call it.
Yeah.
So then, if you want to exercise your Second Amendment right, even with one of these specified semi-automatics, you would have to take more training, and that doesn't even count towards the 12-hour or the 4-hour.
No, so if you took more training, that would count towards either that 4-hour or that 12-hour. You would just have to get that card first. You do a background check, get the card from CPW, then you would take the class. And what's interesting is the class is very similar to the concealed carry class.
Right.
So if you look at like what they want you to go over, so it's safe gun handling, ammunition, talking to children about firearms. But in addition, there's also a few things that are kind of interesting, like they want you to talk about empathy, victims and empathy.
And what is
there was
that?
something else, and I'm like, how do you even teach empathy? Also, what I thought was really interesting, and I was hoping that one of the reps was going to ask me when I just testified, but I noticed that they also want you to demonstrate how to use the firearm safely. Yep. My question is, how do you, as an instructor, how are you going to make sure that they are demonstrating the firearm, that they're able to demonstrate the firearm, if they aren't able to buy their firearm first?
Well, I mean, as an instructor, I think that would mean that we would actually have to purchase those firearms.
But think about it. There's hundreds of variations.
Right.
So let's say I have an AR, which everyone is making this bill about an AR, and it's not. It's about a lot of other guns, lots of shotguns included.
That's true.
So normally with the concealed carry classes, I would have somebody bring their own handgun in, familiarize themselves with that gun, and then they would go through and then they would go and get their concealed carry permit, but they would know how to use that gun properly.
Right.
With this, because they can't buy the gun beforehand, how are they familiarizing themselves with this gun?
Yep.
And it's virtually impossible unless we're a gun store to have all of these guns. And even if you're a gun store, you're not. I mean, unless you're like a big box store, maybe.
Right. So, I mean, we can talk offline about it, but the way I understand it is, as a firefight instructor, we might be able to purchase these specified semi-automatics and have them on hand for our students.
Maybe.
Right. But,
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't even know if we would. I mean, would we
be grandfathered into this thing?
Well, we
or
would
grandmothered in your case.
We would be grandfathered into whatever we own, but I don't know if. Yeah, I mean that's an excellent point, and then also that's expensive too. I mean, the average firearm on the low end is about $500, and again, when we're talking about long guns, that's very low. Yeah. They are usually at least $700+ dollars.
Now, your sister generally runs the Dragon Mans, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe you guys have talked about this, but this will create even more of a black market than there already is, correct?
Correct.
Right. So law-abiding citizens, they'll go through the red tape, all that stuff, but the criminal, they're just going to go, oh, well, I'll go buy it from, maybe Tren de Agua, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think they have actually pushed so many laws at this point that it is becoming almost impossible to become a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
Whether you knowingly or unknowingly break that law. And also, I mean, if somebody wants to, even let's just say hunting. Let's say somebody wants to go hunting. So now CPW there's this bottleneck. It's already taking them a long time before they even get that permit, as it stands. Before it's all said and done. But now with all these people now swarming to probably get their hunter safety license because they don't want to take the 12-hour class, it's going to prolong it even further. By the time they, go through the whole procedure, we're talking about, honestly, in there, they said weeks. I thought that was a joke because I'm thinking it's going to be close to a year.
It's going to be a long time.
If somebody, let's say they want to go hunting because they can't afford food and they want to provide for their family, now they have to wait a year just to buy a hunting rifle.
Right. Exactly. So, do you have anything else you want to say? I don't have any more questions. So
I do.
I do.
In fact, everybody needs to vote because the reason why all these bills are passing is because we were outnumbered in there. And, it's great to show up and testify, but it's really important that we vote in elections, which gun owners are just notorious for just not turning up for.
Yep. Okay. Well, this is Dave with AAA Coach with Ava Flanell. So you guys go vote. Obviously, it's kind of too late for you to be up here now, but
in future elections.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it's too late for you to be testifying up here now, but for the next testimony, if this ever makes its way again, then obviously come testify, or at least in person.
Oh yeah, and there's so many future bills. I mean, we're getting swarmed. There's plenty of opportunities. We're only halfway through the legislative session, so definitely sign up, and or at the very least contact your representatives and tell them to stop voting yes on these bills.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Hey, this is Mark. Now he owns I68, which is a competitor of mine, right? But here's the thing: we grew up. We're cut from the same cloth. We're both from 10 Special Forces Group. We both have, 20 plus years?
Yeah.
20 plus years, yeah. 24. Yep, exactly. So we're both firearms instructors in the El Paso County here in Colorado, and we're both very, very against this bill. It's definitely not a constitutional bill at all. So I'll let Mark tell us what he thinks about the bill, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, as Dave said, him and I served together in 10 Special Forces Group. So if you're not coming to I68 for training, definitely go to Dave. He says we're competitors. I think we are both great instructors, both great companies, and so that is just get good training. That's all that matters. As for this bill, obviously it's highly unconstitutional, both on the state and federal level. From the clients that I have, over 70% of our clients have been women in the last 8 years, and over half of those, it was the first time ever shooting a firearm. And I'm sure Dave is very in the same boat, and because they didn't realize that they needed this training until something happened. It could have been like my wife, where their husband travels constantly, so she needs the training and the expertise to protect herself. Some, they might have a scare and they've refused to be a victim, so they've come to get training and buy a firearm. And then others, I've had a lot of divorced moms. Now they're the sole protectors. This bill effectively, through bureaucratic banning of firearms, doesn't allow these people to protect themselves and their loved ones. And that's the whole point of the Second Amendment, so we can protect ourselves and our loved ones and fight against a tyrannical government. And that's the point of the Second Amendment. This bill will create more victims. It doesn't help law-abiding citizens like Dave, myself, our clients. And so, yeah, I am forcefully opposed to this bill, and I think it would be horrible for the state and for the country.
So, Mark, what's the most concerning part about the bill that you see within the bill? Like the very top. Like, if you could take anything out of the bill, except for like getting rid of it all together, of course. Yeah. If you could take anything out of the bill, what would it be?
Really, two things. Obviously, the bureaucratic and red tape that we have to go ask permission to go get training, then to go get a firearm. And that's just a government. And then the second, with the new amendment of them making CPW the sole proprietor of who can get a firearm, who cannot, what are the rules, how much does it cost? Colorado is already an expensive state. It should not cost that much money to be able to protect yourself and your loved ones. So there's really two things: the bureaucratic process. Dave and I have worked in government a long time, and bureaucracy kills a lot of things. And so that process right there is going to be a nightmare, especially for people that are brand new to the firearms industry, new to defensive shooting, and so it's going to be horrible for them.
Yeah. So, like Mark was saying, so if you don't think that the government can run everything into the ground that it could, just look at Afghanistan. Yeah. 20 years in Afghanistan, and then a botched withdrawal, right? So anyway, I'll get off of my soapbox here. But what Mark was saying is that, yeah, you're going to have to get a permission slip just to take safety training so that you can then buy a firearm, which then, by the way, after you get that permission slip, and then you go, let's say you do all the stuff, then you still have to get a background check just to buy that firearm. So there's two background checks in the entire thing, and then you register. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. And now CPW stands for Colorado Parks and Wildlife. In what sense does that make that Colorado Parks and Wildlife would have any kind of say-so on our Second Amendment rights here in Colorado? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I would just say this is my first time doing this with that I'm retiring from the Army, and I would just say, hey, even if you're not a gun person, this is about them taking away your choice to protect yourself and your loved ones. You don't have to make that choice; that is on you. But if you do decide to make that choice, that is your choice as an American, as a Colorado citizen, and then go get high-level training. Go to Dave, or come with AAA Coach, or come to I68 Consulting and get the highest training available that you can. Dave puts on great courses. I68 puts on great courses, and we're here. The reason we do what we do is to have a positive impact on you. And both Dave and I are from the East Coast. We have decided to stay in Colorado to build our businesses and to help our communities, and this is what we're doing up here today. Yeah, so well done, Dave.
All right, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm here with Representative Armagost. He is out of House District 64, and he's a staunch 2A advocate, which we really appreciate because he's outnumbered here in the Colorado General Assembly. We're going to talk to him about his understanding of SB3, how it reads, and what the effect is going to be on Colorado citizens. So, Representative, the first thing is, this is what I understand it to be. You have to go and get a permission slip to take a safety course, so then you can purchase a specified semi-automatic.
Correct.
Which isn't very specified.
No,
it's pretty much all semi-automatics.
Absolutely.
That's direct gas, piston gas, blowback. Now there is kind of a carve out for recoil operated, which I don't even know what the hell that is.
Yeah, it's self-contradicting.
So the way I read it, maybe they're talking about like the pistols are not going to be included in this, like your Glocks and your Canics and your SIGs and stuff like that. So if somebody wants to exercise their right in a concealed fashion, because we're going back to last year's bill, which was passed, they have to go and get an 8-hour course. And does that 8-hour course count to the 12-hour or 4-hour course that this bill is proposing?
No, this is another way to require people to pay more money to take more training for permission, like you said, to get a firearm that's on an arbitrary list of random firearms that are otherwise banned in this bill. So it's just another way to hurt businesses, to hurt the consumers, and otherwise chase businesses and consumers out of state to get the firearms that they want to get, especially those that fall onto this arbitrary list.
So do you think this is going to create even more of a black market?
Absolutely.
I mean, especially with everything else that they're trying to propose?
Yeah, getting people to drive out of state to get firearms. All they can get now are long guns out of state. So it's just another way to hinder, but otherwise, yeah, forcing people to, well, I know my buddy's selling this firearm, so I'll just buy it from that person. And then there probably won't be obviously a legal transfer, because that under this is banned as well. So
Understood. Why do you think there's not as many people here today as there was for the assault weapons ban last year?
I think people they're fed up. I think people have kind of just realized this bill has morphed into something every time it's been read in either committee or on the floor of the Senate. It'll morph again before we see it on the House floor, if we see it on the House floor. I think it's something that it's got to go through a bunch more different routes before it even makes it to the House floor, especially with any kind of a fiscal note. It'll go through finance, and otherwise any changes that are made, which already have been in the House, it's going to have to go back to the Senate for approval on the amendment. So there's going to be a lot of steps still to go on this bill, a lot of more reasons for it to morph into something different, and hopefully beat it until it's beat into submission.
So I think one last question. With all the things that it has to go through, do you think that has a potential to actually reach the end of the legislative session before it even gets voted on?
It's likely. The way that this thing has been delayed so far, I know some of that's been intentional, I'm sure. The rest of it has just been for technical reasons. But as much as it's delayed, there's a lot more important things to do in this legislature, and I think the leadership on both sides of the aisle know that. So getting this to trail as long as it can down the line and get important legislation for Colorado through is what we all want. That's what Colorado wants. So hopefully, yeah, it'll either fall off the calendar or die altogether.
Cool. Thank you so much, Representative.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Hey guys, David Tremblay, coach here. I'm here with Sheriff Wheatley. He's the Douglas County Sheriff. He just testified against SB3, and I just wanted him to kind of talk about it and what he understands of it. So, Sheriff, if you would tell us, please, what you understand of the bill, especially for guys like me that is a verified Colorado instructor now. What are we going to have to do if this thing passes for anybody who comes to us?
Well, if you for anybody that wants to purchase one of the prohibited firearms, which to me, when I read this bill, and I've read it many times, it looks like most firearms. There seems to be some semantics there about what's a gas operated firearm and what's not. Mm-hmm. Any type of semi-automatic firearm, when you pull that trigger, it's the gases that are expelled from that cartridge that causes that action to go back and then chamber another round. Mm-hmm. So from my perspective, it appears that all semi-automatic weapons are going to be illegal.
So there's 4 distinctions in there. There's the direct gas, piston gas, blowback, and then recoil operated. Now, I'm very familiar with direct gas and piston gas. It's generally you're going to be your AR-15s, your AK-47s. Your blowback systems would be something like a submachine gun kind of a thing. And then, but recoil operated, I'm not exactly sure what that is. It doesn't sit well with me. And I'm a former weapons sergeant in the Special Forces. So
if you look at the bottom of the page 3 on this bill,
yeah,
it looks to me like it's the average semi-automatic pistol.
Gotcha. So also this bill says that there's a 12-hour training course, unless you have a hunter safety card, then it's a 4-hour training course. Now, since if somebody wants to exercise their Second Amendment in a concealed fashion and they want to specify semi-automatic, would they then have to take the 8-hour concealed carry course and then a 12-hour course? Like how does that work exactly?
I believe the way that it's written, they would have to take both, but I'm not 100% on that. But from my perspective, this bill is designed to make everything much more difficult for a law-abiding citizen to exercise their constitutional rights and make it as cumbersome as possible to either purchase these weapons or to carry these weapons lawfully. Again, my point for being up there, criminals don't care. Everything that's being discussed here, the litany of pages in this bill and the amendments, they don't care. And so this only affects everyday people like you and me. These bills apply to me as well. As the sheriff, I have to wait 3 days. I bought like 4 guns since the 3-day waiting period.
Right.
I have to wait 3 days just like everybody else.
Wow.
Depending on where they go with this bill, will I be approving myself to get one of these cards? It just
Right.
doesn't, it lacks all knowledge. I wish we lived in a world where we didn't need to have gun bills like this. I wish people wouldn't hurt each other. I wish people wouldn't kill themselves, but that's just not realistic. That's not the real world we live in. And my cops deal with it every single day.
Understood. So obviously the permission card to actually get the safety training, that's going to be a background check, but that has nothing to do with the federal background check when you go to purchase the firearm. So
Correct.
there'll be 2 background checks, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, obviously I'm against the bill, 100% full stop. But if there's anything you could take out of it, what would that be? That one thing, if you could just rip it out, aside from obviously getting rid of the bill altogether.
Boy, that's a tough question. I don't like the list of I think it's convoluted. It's hard to say one thing. It needs clarity. I think this bill is written and designed to be confusing, and it's going to be litigated in the court. I would like straight answers as far as the semi-automatic and whether that is what they intended. And if that's not what they intended, they need to specifically put that in the bill. Because when you read it, the average person reads it, it's pretty clear to me. So that's the one thing that I would take out. These are commonly owned weapons by Americans all over the country.
And then the Supreme Court has specifically said that commonly owned weapons can't be banned. Of course, you're going to say this isn't a ban.
Exactly.
It's a purchase. What do you call it? Purchase regime or system, for example. I did have one more question. I can't remember it right now, so we'll go ahead and end the conversation.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Hey guys, I'm here with Matt. He's from Centennial Gun Club, which it's kind of strange to hop into him because I'm actually teaching the Tactical Hive Cheat Codes of Shooting course in the beginning of May, and it's going to be 2 days, two different courses. I think they're almost full up, but if you want to try to register, check out the link below. So what we're going to talk about, Matt, is SB3 and what you understand of it. Because it's so convoluted, there's so many things in there that are just confusing that I think my listeners and probably Centennial's listeners and everyone else I interviewed today, they probably want to know what the hell is going on with this bill. So this is my understanding. You got to get a permit to even take the safety course.
Right.
Then you take the safety course, and then you can go purchase, right?
Yeah.
With this permit, there's a background check, and then at the end of it, there's a background check, obviously, for purchasing, right? Do I have that right?
You have that right. And then in addition, what comes with this is really, it's a permit or a right to exercise your Second Amendment that expires every 5 years. You have to go and re-up. For any reason, if they decide you aren't deserving of this license, then they can revoke it. It opens you, because it is run by, or as it's proposed right now to be run by CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They apparently don't need a warrant to even search. Yeah, because they are not technically law enforcement. So I think there's, I think there's lots of problems with this. I mean, going back up to 30,000 foot view, obviously Democrats in Colorado are trying very hard with the help of Bloomberg and Bloomberg funded organizations to stymie the Second Amendment here.
Yep.
They're trying to get in the way of individuals purchasing guns. They're trying to put dealers like us out of business. That's their goal. And I think they're understanding through Bruin and our current Supreme Court makeup that they're going to have trouble with an all-out assault weapons ban,
right,
as it is called that. But they're looking for new tactics to undermine our ability to exercise our Second Amendment rights. It's interesting that a billionaire in New York with his own security force,
own guns,
all that stuff. He's got all the protection he needs, but he's making it, essentially, and the politicians he's using here in Colorado, they're just making it more expensive, more difficult for us. And expensive is a key term there too, because whether it's the excise tax that they put in place, the 8-hour CHP class requirement.
Yeah, we talked about that.
A training component to this SB3 law. They're just racking up the dollar bills that you have to spend, and not everybody has those needs. That is not what this Second Amendment states. It isn't for the rich only.
Yeah, so I've said that to my followers before. It's like this thing makes it an affluent right. Not it can't be by anybody. It's got to be people with money, or at least they'll have to go in debt to do this. Just a little pop quiz here. Do you know how much it would take for an individual without a concealed handgun permit, without a firearm, without a holster, without anything? How much would it take them to legally concealed carry in the state of Colorado when everything's said and done?
Boy, if I were to do that, a lot of variables in that question. The cost of the class, the cost of the equipment that they're buying, but I think you could probably do that if you wanted to for well under $500.
Really?
I think so.
No,
because
the firearm's $500 already.
Well, unless you buy a high point.
Well, yeah. So I did the math on this.
Yeah.
Say average firearms $500.
Yes.
It would take about $1,200 to $1,500 for one person without anything at all to get all the training. That's to include gas. That's to include the range fee. That's to include all the things, right? I did the math on it. And California is even worse. But okay, so back on SB3.
That does surprise me.
Yeah. So back on SB3. So let's take an individual that wants to exercise in a concealed fashion, and they want a specified semi-automatic, whatever the hell that is, because they say it's a direct gas, they say it's a piston gas, they say it's a blowback, and they say it's recoil operated, whatever that is.
Yes.
By the way,
all recoil-operated firearms, that recoil is activated by gas, right? We
know that. Exactly. Exactly. So all these things, it's like, okay, wait a minute, that's a semi-automatic firearm. What are they leaving out? Air guns?
Yeah.
Right.
Eventually that's, I'm sure that would be on the list too if we got that far.
Exactly.
I don't, it is, every time I come up here and I'm testifying on these bills and meeting with the other side, I'm always hoping to be able to bring logic and law into the discussion. It doesn't seem to work. My wife and I are victims of the worst mass shooting in this country's history. And I take it.
And which one was that? Because
Vegas.
Okay, Vegas.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure to clarify, because some people will say, one is worse than the other or whatever.
Yeah, by victim count, I guess.
I got you.
Point being, our choice is not to focus on the inanimate objects that were used, the tools used. That's not the point for these people. The point is to create victims without opposition.
Right.
To create an environment where people like me can't fight back. And these politicians are just aiding them.
Yeah.
They're just creating situations where good law-abiding citizens don't have the right or the equal tool to fight back against criminals. Because we know criminals aren't going to take a 12-hour course to get their certificate to go buy their gun. They are going to obtain that gun any way they want, or any tool. Drones will be next. I don't like to be the doomsday foreseer, but there will be. It's trucks in New Orleans, in France. It's guns
coming.
here. It's knives there.
Yep.
Eventually, it'll be. They won't be able to keep up with regulating the tools.
Yep. Bad people will find a way to do bad things. So that's a good segue into. I found it interesting that one of the people in support of this bill brought up Mexico. Now, do you know how many firearms shops are in Mexico?
Well, they have very strict gun laws in Mexico. I don't know.
There's one firearm shop in the entire country of Mexico. So let's just say hypothetically, let's say Claudia Sheinbaum decided, you know what? We like Colorado's SB3. let's go ahead and enact that here. Do you think the cartels, the criminal cartels, the terrorist cartels, what do you call them?
Yes.
Do you think they're going to go do their permits?
Absolutely, they're going to
That's
go
exact. So there's a good, interesting take on that, right? So anyway, it's been a pleasure to have you on my channel, and I will tag you in it. And
We'll see you in May.
yeah, for sure. Hey guys, I'm here with Sheriff Meixel. He is the sheriff for Teller County.
Yes.
And had to make sure on his sleeve. Anyway, so we're talking about SB3 and what this will do to not only citizens but also verified instructors like myself, and how this is going to affect basically Colorado as a whole. So, Sheriff, the way I understand the bill to read is if it's passed, someone would have to get a permit to even take the safety course, correct?
Yes.
And that safety course could be a 12-hour or a 4-hour, depending on if you have a hunter safety card.
Correct.
Now, there are some other confusing things. So, for example, someone said that you have to take the basic safety and the extended safety, so that's a total of 16 hours. Is that correct?
Well, here's what we don't understand in this bill, right?
Yeah.
We're not for sure exactly what it does do, because really, even the bill founder can't even talk to that. So
Understood.
right now, I think we're trying to figure out what the verified instructor means also, because really, who's verifying it? How are they being verified? We do know that this bill is going to probably go back to CPW. And the problem, like they just talked about, is it's going to take them 120 days to even, for most people, to get through a hunter safety course, or to get to where they actually have an instructor.
Okay.
So how they spin that up, and really what I think it does is it gets rid of all regular instructors, right? Because it won't matter if they go through your course or my course or anyone else's course. It'll basically kill that business throughout Colorado.
So the way I understand verified instructors, because of the bill last year,
Yes.
right? So if you have a verified instructor card from a county, like mine is like El Paso County 24003, right?
Yep.
That's the way I understand verified instructor. But so let's just back up a little bit. An instructor who wants to be an instructor in the state of Colorado to issue a concealed handgun permit, or at least a certificate, safety certificate, would probably be qualified, quote unquote, to teach the specified semi-automatic firearm safety course. So if somebody outside of that instructor realm would want to exercise their Second Amendment in a concealed fashion and purchase one of these specified semi-automatic, which we know is a rebranded assault weapons ban, they would have to go through an 8-hour concealed weapons course with a 50-round minimum. They would have to obviously pay the fees and all that stuff, and then they apply for their CCW or CHP here in Colorado, and then if they want to buy a specified semi-automatic, they have to get a permission slip to take another safety course, whether it's the 12 or 4 or both. But then after that, then they can go ahead and purchase the firearm, which would then entail another federal background check. Am I correct in saying all that stuff?
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think there's even more to it than that. Because
Yeah.
here's the other side of it we looked at, is that under the standard state law for verified instructor, it's actually done by county.
Okay.
So each county has to do it. But then on the same token, this is going to be a new verification system, not the old one. So then do you have to go through and get another verification program through the state of Colorado also?
Oh, wow.
Or is it only going to be done by CPW agents?
Oh, so you're saying that the verified instructor, there could be a verified instructor 1, verified instructor 2?
Well, and they may not even be allowed anymore. So really what's happening is it's kind of overriding the last law and how this law is working. You know, that's the problem we don't understand, because it's written so poorly.
Yeah.
And you got to understand who wrote it.
Yeah.
Right? So the problem that we're running into right now is how do we deal with understanding it ourselves?
Yeah.
And now that it may be placed under CPW, which they don't want it either,
Right.
Because that's not their mission. And it's even
It hits the
insurance.
name, CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Yes,
not-
absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of the concerns. And,
Yeah.
and we do know it's a Second Amendment violation. We do know this is a gun grab. We do know that they'll keep coming after your firearms. And that's why we're here today, is to try to stop that.
I think one last question, Sheriff. Do you think it's concerning that our representatives and our senators are not listening to law enforcement officers in this state?
Well, just like I testified to now, where is the law enforcement they're saying that they're helping and protecting, right? We are all sitting in front of them saying we don't want it.
Yeah.
But yet not one of them can actually say, well, we have so-and-so here, right? that discussion where they say stakeholder, there's been no stakeholder.
Gotcha.
There's been an absolute, we're going to do this whether you like it or not, right? And that's why you hear them talk down about sheriffs or different organizations, because they really don't want us to have a discussion in this, because it doesn't make things better. It actually makes it worse, because now you're a lawful owner of a semi-automatic firearm that somebody sees. What do you think a bad guy's going to do? They're going to go to your home because you're the one with it. So they're making you a target now.
Yep.
So I think it's super unfortunate.
I know I said the last question, but I got another question that just came to me. Because of the lack of care, I guess you would call it, for what sheriffs say and police officers say throughout the state, is it harder to recruit new cadets?
I think good men and women will always step forward.
Okay.
Right? But I do think that we have such a train wreck of a legislative body at this point, with really only political and social agendas. They really don't even see the other implications of what these laws will do.
Understood.
So my hope is, while we're all testifying here, that they start seeing there's more than just one look at this.
Gotcha.
But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Sheriff. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm here with Ian Escalante. Am I saying that correct? Okay, and he's with Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, and I listened to him on the way up here from El Paso County, and apparently there's several bills that are anti 2A that are coming through, but we're here to talk about SB3 today. But I'll let Ian talk about some of those bills, and then let's get into the SB3 and what his thoughts are on that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. Absolutely. Well, the main thing that we're dealing with right now is for the last decade or so, there's been a historic assault on our Second Amendment rights. And it started with the magazine ban back in 2013.
Yep.
And now it's slowly moving along. It's been slowly moving along. And as I mentioned in my testimony, they tried an assault weapons ban in 2023 and 2024. And now here in 2025, they started out with an assault weapons ban, and then they morphed it into a firearm owner ID card / permit to purchase scheme, and that's what we're dealing with today.
Well, permit for training, actually, if you think about it. So for the 2013 magazine law, was it Tom Sullivan, or was that?
No, that was before Sullivan.
That was before Sullivan.
Those were some people who are no longer.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so with your current feel right now, what do you think is going to be happening here in this committee? Do you think it's going to pass committee?
Unfortunately, I do. Where it goes after this and how it does in a vote of the full House remains to be seen. But we will definitely, we're putting as much pressure as humanly possible on these legislators. You may have seen Representative Chad Clifford having a total meltdown in there because we dared to use our First Amendment right and deliver petitions to his office last year. So, yeah, it's
well. You also
insane.
had some petitions or something of that nature to Tom Sullivan, but he didn't accept
and
them.
he had a whole meltdown about that too. So
interesting.
Yes.
You mentioned in your video from last night, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned that they're trying to get CPW to have basically full authority over this.
Yes.
Is that still a thing?
So I received a copy of the amendment yesterday. We're hearing this amendment is going to get filed at the end of testimony, so probably around midnight tonight.
Okay.
They're going to stick it on the bill. They're going to turn this all over to CPW because the sheriffs don't want anything to do with this.
Gotcha. So how do we – I think the legislative season ends like, what, May 6th or 7th, something like that? Is that correct?
Yeah, May 7th.
How can we basically postpone this until it gets there? Like, does it go back to the Senate at all?
So if they do add this amendment on, the bill will go back to the Senate.
It will go back to the Senate. So that's going to buy some time there. Mm-hmm. Potentially.
It could.
It could buy some time.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. But thank you for.
Of course.
Thank you for that.